Hello, everybody. It's Thor, and today we are going to be talking about the November 2022 predictions. And I feel that this month is going to be the apex or the climax month for 2022. So, a lot of these energies that have been building throughout the year, I feel like they're going to be finally really coming to a head this month. So it's going to be a powerful month, especially because Mars is going to be going retrograde in the sign of Gemini and moving into Taurus on November 13th. But that's going to be starting on October 30th. So the whole month is going to be flavored by this Martian energy. And the danger that we have with this Mars energy is people are going to be losing their cool both individually and collectively. So I'm really worried about world leaders losing their cool during this period because Mars retrograde really represents a lot of karma dealing with anger and war and conquest and battle. All of that's coming to a forefront because many of you guys may not know, but when a planet is retrograde, it's actually considered stronger in Vedic astrology. So when Mars is retrograde, that planet is being emphasized. And so this is really going to be shaking up world events for the next month. Also, we have the USA midterms on November 8th. And that day happens to be the day of the lunar eclipse in Aries. So we're going to focus in a little bit on that in a minute. For those of you guys that are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. My goal is 10,000 subscribers. We're currently at about 1,500 subscribers. And just so you know, I am a Vedic sidereal astrologer. I don't do Western tropical astrology. So your sign may be different if you're new to Vedic astrology. You want to find the appropriate calculator online if you're new to this. If you're interested in a private reading and to see how all these monthly events are affecting you, please check the details down below, and it's 40% off all readings on my website. And I want to put a final little caveat in there. Predictions are not meant to replace qualified financial advice. I do have some statements I'm going to be making about the markets. I do feel like it's going to be a pretty tough month there, and especially for real estate. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so let's talk about the November highlights. Okay, so on October 30th, the Mars is going to be going retrograde in Gemini, and that represents the third house of the natural zodiac. And the third house has to do with communications and business. And that's why I made the video earlier. I feel like there's going to be some sort of large disruption there. And I feel like business is going to be disrupted. This could come in the form of some sort of cyber attack or some other event, because we know that a lot of nations are in conflict at the moment, and a lot of the superpowers are even in conflict at the moment. And this is one of the ways that they undermine each other is through cyber warfare. So that's very much highlighted. And when Mars makes its station on October 30th, this is going to be a powerful energy there in the sign of Gemini. So this is going to be a very explosive time. The next thing we need to talk about is November 8th. That's going to be the day of the lunar eclipse. Now, I'm going to make a separate video about how the lunar eclipse is going to impact all of us. But in a nutshell, the lunar eclipse is happening in the sign of Aries. And it's going to be happening in a nakshatra called Bharani. And the ruling deity of that planet, or sorry, that nakshatra is the god Yama. And Yama is associated with the god of death in Vedic astrology. So it does seem that there's something very triggering that day on November 8th. And especially being in the sign of Aries, well, Aries is the sign of war, of conflict, of confrontation. That happens to be the day that the US is having its midterms. And I was shocked when I saw that they were actually having their midterms on the lunar eclipse. I was thinking if I was advising them, I would advise them not to have the midterms on the day of the lunar eclipse. But, you know, powers bigger than me made those decisions. But I do feel like because the lunar eclipse is going to be happening on the 6th house of the USA chart. And it's also going to be happening in the 6th house of Joe Biden's chart. I feel like this is going to be a very contested, very conflictive type of election. We are going to see a power shift, I believe, during this time, but I do feel that there's going to be so much conflictive element to this. I'm very much worried about this specific date. And this is going to affect the world, whatever happens on that date. So this is a day to be very careful about. If you're voting on that day, just take appropriate precautions. But I do feel like with the Mars energy being so present from the retrograde, people are going to be on edge. So be very careful. And if you can, try to keep to yourself. Try not to interact with people that much that day, because the energies are just going to be very intense. Because not only is Mars retrograde, but this lunar eclipse happening in the Martian sign of Aries. So this is going to be a very volatile day. And I do expect, well, a lot of drama coming out of this election. So be careful. We also could see some sort of war escalations worldwide around the time of the lunar eclipse. So this isn't just about the US midterms. The sign of Aries is being activated, which is a sign of war. So this is something that we very much have to collectively be aware of. And of course, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you some remedies, because I know I'm giving a lot of fearful stuff in this video. We're talking about war escalations, we're talking about cyber attacks, we're talking about the economy going bad. But remember, part of spiritual awakening is dealing with things as they are and not pretending and not living in delusion. One of the biggest problems that people have on the path to awakening is they live in delusion. They're believing in samsara. They're believing all their own thoughts. They're believing their mind is this, every thought they have is the truth. Okay? And that's not what all the great spiritual teachers tell us. They say that we need to quiet the mind, and we need to come from the ego, the head. We need to get to the heart, a place of feeling and a place of understanding. And that's where the true wisdom really lies. And I feel like the problem this month is going to be too many leaders around the world are going to be using their heads here, but reacting out of anger and not responding through here, not responding through love and compassion. And that's going to be the difficult part through all of this. On November 13th, that's going to be when Mars goes back into Taurus. And basically what's going to be happening is, I want you to think about the last 3 months in all of your personal lives. There's going to be some sort of thing from your past, and it's going to be brought to the surface. And it really depends on what your ascendant sign is. And I maybe could do a video on that soon, on Mars retrograde and how it's going to affect all signs. If you guys comment down below and let me know if you want that, I will. But basically what's going to happen is, I feel that because Taurus represents the 2nd house of stored assets, I feel like there's going to be some big problems with the stock markets around that time. I feel like gold and silver are going to be doing great, though, because Taurus is the sign of that represents silver. So especially silver is going to do really good. It's going to be a really good place. But I feel like things like food, that's going to be inflated. And then I feel like real estate is going to be going down this month. And we might actually see some really big problems with real estate. But I think this is something that most of you already know. I don't think that this is coming out as a surprise to any of you if you've been watching what the Federal Reserve is doing with the interest rate hikes. So this is pretty, I think you guys already understand that. On November 20th, Venus and Mercury are going to be in the sign of Scorpio. Venus is the natural karaka of finance, and the Scorpio represents the 8th house in the zodiac. And the 8th house is a house of volatility and sudden and shocking events that are happening. So when I see Venus there, the planet of finance and so forth, and Mercury is another planet that has to deal with commerce in the 8th house, they're going conjunct. And Mercury is the 6th lord in the natural zodiac. I feel like around November 20th, you might want to mark your calendars around this date. There could be some real stock market volatility or drops or something happening along that date. So you might want to mark your calendar on that one. Let me take you guys to the presentation. And then well, let me take you to the presentation. I forgot to mention on November 24th, Jupiter is going to be direct in Pisces. And we'll talk about that in a second, because I do feel like we're going to have some strange things happening in the skies. So you guys want to be looking up in the skies, because you might be seeing some things from other worlds this month. So this is my predictions. I wrote them down just so we could really, in case I forget. But here we wrote them down. Mars retrograde will cause anger individually and collectively during this month. And I do believe war escalations worldwide are going to be a problem for this month. And leaders are going to be making decisions out of anger. And I feel like that's the biggest problem that we're all going to be facing. November 8th, difficult times during the US midterm elections happening on the day of the lunar eclipse. That's so weird. Confrontations and conflict likely to arise, and maybe very contested elections, since it's going to be in the 6th house of the USA chart. So I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of contestedness about it, or people at least very angry about it. November 13th is the economic problems, I said, with Mars retrograde Taurus. However, I do feel like it's good for silver and gold during this time, but bad for real estate. November 20th, volatile markets, shocking news. That's going to be Venus and Mercury in the sign of Scorpio, the natural 8th house, if you guys want to remember that one. And then November 24th, guidance is coming back. This is the grace coming back. So Jupiter is going to be making its way back. And I do feel like, and this is kind of more of a positive note, with Jupiter in the 12th house going direct, it's in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces tends to be other worlds. So the astral world is represented by Pisces, spirit guides, spiritual guidance, but also otherworldly visitors. So for example, UFOs and other things like that. You could be seeing something in the skies this month, so take a look, because Jupiter's really going to be emphasizing that. And I did have a client send me an email with a picture that he took of one when he was driving to Vegas. So this is going to be an interesting time for sure. Let's go back to the presentation. And before, I don't want to leave you guys on such a negative note. Like I said, I did have, with my last video, my October video, there was a few people that said they were, I was being very negative and they unsubscribed. And so I'm trying to put this in a positive way. But like I said earlier, this is about us really being honest with ourselves and looking at things truthfully. If you look at the world truthfully right now, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. There's a lot of things that need to be healed. You know what Mars is doing is Mars is actually making us face those stored aggressions or that resentment that we have from the past. It's bringing it to the surface so that that can be released and healed. That's the real lesson of Mars going retrograde. It's not meant to just punish everybody. It's meant to actually heal if you have the consciousness that's high enough to recognize that it needs to be healed. Then it can be. So let's go to the presentation here. So I wanted to give you some remedies. So I don't want to just leave you saying this month is going to be a crazy month. It is going to be crazy. But this is a few things that I recommend. Okay, I do recommend a meditation to calm your mind. Okay, and with meditation, it can be any form of meditation that you feel comfortable with. Okay, like I practice a type of Zen meditation at the moment. I do about 20 minutes at least daily. And if you're interested, you can even do a guided meditation on YouTube. They're really easy to find. There's even meditations where you use mantras and you can repeat a mantra internally as you quiet the mind. So check that out. I leave that latitude to all of you. Let's go. Because of all the Martian energy that's happening this month, I do recommend something where you're exercising your body to really release that energy. So martial arts, yoga, gym, hiking, this is all designed to release that Mars energy so that, so you don't project your anger and you don't project your own internal issues on everybody else. I also do recommend wearing grounding crystals like black obsidian, hematite, tiger's eye, and smoky quartz. For example, let me show you. I wear a bracelet, and you guys could get something like this. It's got black obsidian, hematite, and tiger's eye on it. And it's meant as a grounding and type of protection bracelet. And they sell these in a lot of different places that you can look at, but this is something you could think about as far as grounding if you are all interested. And let me show you the next remedy. I also recommend a daily shielding practice for empaths and other people. Those of you that are really sensitive, you may want to look into an energetic shielding practice. For example, on YouTube, you can find something called the 12D shield that a lot of people have developed as a shielding practice for before you leave your house every day. There's many ways to do it. You can look it up on YouTube, but it's really visualizing a type of protective energy around yourself and shielding yourself from a lot of the energies that are out there before you go out every day. Because even though you might be controlling your anger, you might not be able to control other people's anger when they're projecting it on you. So the idea is not to let their energy interfere with your energy. The other thing I want to recommend is walking barefoot in nature. And, it doesn't necessarily be that you need to walk in the forest or go to the woods, go camping for a weekend. But you can go outside if you have a park near you, or if you have a backyard with grass, and take your shoes off. And one of the ways is to have your bare feet on the ground and then send any of that negative energy that you have into the earth. And that's another way you can ground yourself. Let me take you back to the presentation here. And I'm also recommending, because of the volatility of the Mars energy this month, I am recommending that everybody have at least 2 weeks of food and water available in case of emergencies. And I'm also recommending you, if you guys if you have the means, but have some cash in a safe place in your houses, or just in a safe place you deem safe, just in case like credit card systems go down or there's some sort of issue with people accepting cards as payments. I'm recommending general precautions. So if you are prepared and a shocking event happens, you're going to be a little bit more put together if it happens. So that's what I recommend. I recommend being prepared. And when Thor was about 10 years old, I used to be in Boy Scouts, and I remember the motto was "Be prepared," and that always stuck with me. So being prepared is better than not being prepared and getting into trouble. So thank you guys for all being here, and let me know what you guys think down below. And what do you think? Do you agree, disagree, or just tell me your comments? Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.